start today. And this time we're going to focus on the 40 verses of Hanuman Chalisa, dedicated to Lord Hanuman, who is given the highest regard, the highest amount of respect, highest amount of reverence in terms of how a devotee should be, a true devotee should be. When it comes to devotion, the name that goes synonymous with devotion is Hanuman. Hanuman is this very enchanting, very profound, very very important character in the epic of Ramayana, who was a great devotee of Lord Rama. And one of the main reasons why we probably should try to learn from Hanuman is, we being spiritual aspirants who are trying to grow spiritually, we'll have to see what can we learn from Hanuman. Because Hanuman wasn't humble because he didn't have abilities. Rather, he was abundant, or he was overwhelmingly full of abilities. In spite of all that, he was extremely humble, or extremely in the attitude of a devotee, which we ought to learn from. Because for us, even a small reason is good enough for our ego to bloat, much bigger than it actually should be. Larger than, what do you call it, larger than life size, larger than life. Our ego is usually bloated as big as that. It's usually larger than life. And Hanuman probably is the right direction to look at, to make it work otherwise. So the overall premise, the overall idea that we are going to go after is the attitude of devotion, because Hanuman Chalisa consists of all the various verses, because it is again written by a devotee of Hanuman, devotee of Lord Rama. So Hanuman is praised in all the ways possible, but in midst of all those praises, or all these abilities that Lord Hanuman had, how did he still practice devotion? How did he still practice humility is what we need to reflect on. So the overall focus that we will have in terms of going through the verses of Hanuman Chalisa is to focus on devotion, bhakti. So far we have discussed about Bhagavad Gita, we discussed Guru Gita, we discussed Tattva Bodha, we discussed Bhaja Govindam, and of course we discussed Lalita Sahasranama. Keeping Lalita Sahasranama aside, most of the other texts that we discussed is more Vedantic in flavor. It is more about the supreme soul, the Paramatma, or the individual soul, and try to realize my true self, which is sans everything which is ephemeral in nature, which is impermanent in nature. And our focus with those scriptures was such. Lalita Sahasranama, on the other hand, was focused on the Divine Mother, but at the same time, it was quite Vedantic in nature, as you may have noticed when we discussed the explanation of Lalita Sahasranama, the 1,000 names of the Divine Mother. But on the other hand, Hanuman Chalisa is very simple in nature. It is literally narrating the various deeds of Lord Hanuman, the context in which Lord Hanuman acted in various ways, and how they inspire us. So here the focus is more about bhakti. And the other scriptures, when we discuss about the Vedantic topics, they are more in terms of jnana, knowledge. So we call it the path of knowledge, the path of contemplation, jnana yoga. Whereas this particular text, we will try to focus on bhakti yoga. Not that either of these are different. Of course, the flavor is different, but the gist of both these paths are one and the same. Amma says bhakti and jnana are wings of the same bird. They complement each other. It is just impossible to fly with one wing. We need both the wing. A bird would need both the wings so as to soar up in the sky. Similarly, we need both bhakti and jnana. There is no possibility of let me just be a jnana yogi. Let me just focus on knowledge and nothing else. Just not possible. On the other side, thinking, why go through all this jnana yoga and contemplation? Let me just focus on bhakti. That also is incomplete in nature. For achieving something, so as to get to our goal, we definitely need to have domain knowledge about that particular field or that particular thing that we are dealing with. Jnana Yoga points to that, to gain the right domain knowledge so as to proceed or progress in that field. And Bhakti Yoga, on the other side, it points to all the qualities that we need to develop so as to achieve the goal. Just having the domain knowledge alone will not help us to achieve the goal. Just having the domain knowledge, but no right qualities. When we talk about qualities, we're talking about dedication, we're talking about perseverance, patience, faith, trust, all of them. If we don't have any of these and just the domain knowledge, it's more likely that we're going to fail in what our endeavor is. On the other side, if we have only patience and perseverance and all these qualities but no domain knowledge, again, that is going to be an incomplete effort that we would put in. Similarly, we need the right qualities to develop, which comes forth through the path of bhakti. And on the other side, we also need to have right understanding of what we need to do, which we develop through the path of jnana, path of knowledge. For example, if we take the Apollo 11 project of NASA, the first spacecraft that landed on the face of moon, definitely a lot of effort, lot of time and effort and dedication went into the whole project to become successful, right? First of all, there had to be domain knowledge from a variety of fields, right? There had to be very precise calculations, very precise knowledge about space and astronomy. There had to be people who had the right knowledge about mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering. There had to be people who were very well versed with atmosphere and meteorology, people who were well versed in computer science because it was all controlled by computer to a good extent, electrical and computer engineering, with all the gadgets that were used for this purpose. People had to be quite spot on in terms of nutrition, in terms of health, in terms of all the medical issues that one may face in this project. There was no discounting in any of these. People did need very specific, very precise knowledge in all these fields so as to make the project work. But at the same time, just having this expertise was not good enough for Apollo to succeed. On the other hand, all those who were involved in the project, they had to develop, they had to practice and exercise hard work and perseverance. There is no doubt all those who worked in that project definitely persevered. They definitely put in a lot of hard work, their heart and soul into it. They had to develop understanding. They had to develop acceptance. They had to put up with people they like and people they don't like, both. And they had to develop that attitude, else that project would have never been successful. At the same time, they needed patience. It's not that I'm starting the project today, tomorrow I'm landing in moon. The whole process probably took years and years of effort. So patience and each failure that they faced, they needed patience for that. They had to change it from a failure to a challenge as a stepping stone to move forward. They needed to have faith in themselves. They needed to have faith in everyone involved. They needed to have faith in the whole project per se. Only then could they achieve it. So if they didn't have the latter, it wouldn't be a successful project that we would talk about today. So both the domain knowledge was very important. At the same time, these values that we need, the virtues that we need, so as to make or help apply the domain knowledge in real world is also equally important. So just not having knowledge or just having the quality alone is not good enough. We need both knowledge and the qualities. That's why Amma says they are both Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga are wings of the same bird. For the bird to fly, both of them have to equally contribute. To acquire the knowledge, the case of Apollo project that we talked about, mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, atmosphere, meteorology, computer science, electrical engineering, medicine, all these fields, all those who are involved, they just didn't become electrical engineers or mechanical engineers or doctors or scientists just overnight. They put in a lot of effort. There was a lot of effort and time involved in it. Similarly, to develop the right attitude too, it's not something we will just get like that. Like tomorrow, I'm going to become patient. It's not going to work. To become patient, even that needs a lot of effort and time. So both of them are equally difficult to achieve. There is no one inferior or superior path here. Both of them are equally important. Just that when we choose a particular path, that I want to go through the path of knowledge, I keep that as priority and use the other as a support, a complementing factor. Similarly, if I want to go the path of devotion, I keep the other path. I cannot ignore the other path, rather use that as a complementing factor to this particular path. So both these paths, when we consider, the goal or the objective is one and the same. What is the objective? We have discussed it through Bhagavad Gita. We have discussed it through Lalita Sahasranama when we talked about devotion, or we talked about jnana, contemplation, or atma, etc., the supreme soul. We discussed, we have reiterated it so many times. The prime objective as a spiritual aspirant is either of these paths. The prime objective is to let go of our ego, to overcome our ego. And as we overcome our ego, we automatically realize our true self. That is the common objective of both. Just that the approach is different. In Jnana Yoga, we try to logically rule out our ego and try to realize who I am otherwise. That is my true self. So we logically, the path of neti, the path of negation. No, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. And finally, I find myself. Finally, what I find myself is my true self, is the path of knowledge. And path of devotion, bhakti, is where we are practicing the attitude of surrendering that ego. Here we are not logically negating the ego, rather we are trying to surrender the ego and surrender the ego to a higher force, be it our guru, be it a deity who we are devoted to. We use them as the central point and we try to overcome our ego with the reference point of the guru or the deity. So both are achieving the same, overcoming the ego, just the approach is different. But at the same time, when we want to logically negate our ego, we need some amount of bhakti. And when we say bhakti, patience, perseverance, hard work, acceptance, faith. And at the same time, when we are trying to surrender our ego, just surrendering our ego is not just possible like that. I just think today, or we discussed about it during the scriptural discussion, tomorrow I'm going to surrender my ego to Amma when the webcast happens in the morning, is not going to work. We need to develop the right understanding so as to get to that. So both jnana and bhakti are important. I just thought I'll discuss about this because we are in scriptural discussion sessions wherein we are showing interest in contemplating the path of jnana, but at the same time we are discussing a text which is primarily focusing on bhakti. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on how do we marry both these thought process together, both these paths together. As a matter of fact, we don't need to marry them, they are intertwined, just that we need to recognize they are intertwined. Because of our ego, sometimes we feel like, I'm in this particular path, all the others are just inferior, meaningless. Anyone else who's in the other path, they need to grow up like me. So just so that we have an idea about it. So talking about jnana and bhakti, let's just look a little more into both of these. When we talk about jnana involves three main steps: Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Shravana literally means to listen.